Thomas Forrester stood at the edge of the Forrester mansion's enormous garden, the perfume of flowering roses thick in the air. His pulse hammered, not from the lengthy flight back to Los Angeles, but from the enormity of what he was about to undertake. The sun dipped low, giving golden light on the perfectly prepared venue, white seats covered in silk, a lily-woven archway, and a soothing string quartet playing in the background. It was almost too wonderful for a wedding that was not his. Hope Logan, whom he had loved for years, was ready to marry Carter Walton, and Thomas was there to stop it. His jaw tightened as he adjusted the cuffs of his fitted suit. 2 years overseas had honed his edges and strengthened his resolve. Paris had served as a shelter, a place to rebuild after the upheaval of his past. He'd poured himself into his job at Forrester Creations' European department, creating collections that received high accolades from reviewers and shoppers alike. However, no amount of success could remove Hope from his consciousness. Her smile, her laugh, the way she'd once gazed at him with something near to love, all plagued him. When he heard she was engaged to Carter, it hit him like a blow in the belly. He had booked the first flight back. The lawn was alive with guests, their conversation a faint hum beneath the music. Thomas surveyed the throng for familiar faces. His father, Ridge Forrester, standing tall and proud. Hope's mother, Brooke Logan, adjusting her dress with a timid smile, and his sister Steffi whispering something to her husband Finn. They had not seen him yet. He had sneaked in through a side door, avoiding the expected questioning. He wasn't here for the reunion. He was here for her. Hope stood at the altar, resplendent in a gown that glistened in the waning light. The clothing was one of Thomas's designs, which twisted the knife in his chest. He'd drawn it years ago and imagined her wearing it for him. Carter stood behind her, his hand firm on hers, his smile warm and assured. Carter, the man who had always been there, dependable and compassionate, was the antithesis of Thomas's chaotic history. Thomas clenched his hands. He couldn't let it happen. He took a step forward and then halted. Doubt set in, chilly and biting. What rights did he have? He'd harmed Hope before. His passion with her had once extended to dangerous area, twisting her trust and heart. He had worked hard to adjust and improve, but the scars from his blunders remained. Would she still listen to him now? Or would she see the old Thomas, who had betrayed her trust? The officiant's voice resonated throughout the audience, signaling the start of the ceremony. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Thomas's pulse accelerated. He had to act quickly or lose her forever. He proceeded past the rows of chairs, disregarding the screams of those who recognized him. Steffi's eyes widened when she saw him, and her fingers gripped Finn's arm. Ridge turned, his face furrowed, but Thomas remained focused on Hope. She hadn't seen him yet, but her attention was riveted on Carter, and she smiled softly. "Hope," Thomas remarked, his voice breaking through the music and murmuring. The quartet stumbled. Their bows paused in midstroke. Hope's head snapped up, and her blue eyes locked on his. For a brief moment time stood still. Her lips parted in shock with something else, something he couldn't quite read, flickering over her face. "Thomas." Her voice was scarcely audible, yet it bore the weight of years. Carter's hand tightened around hers, his expression changing from surprise to concern. "I'm sorry," Thomas whispered, moving closer, his voice firm despite the turmoil in his chest. "I understand I'm the last person you expected to see, but I couldn't let you do this without stating my part." The audience broke into whispers, heads twisting, eyes flashing between Thomas, Hope, and Carter. Brooke stood, her fists gripped tightly, her expression a mix of worry and rage. "Thomas, this isn't the time," she responded sternly. "I know it's not," Thomas responded, his gaze never leaving Hope. "But I've spent too much time fleeing from us. I can't keep silent any longer." Carter walked forward, putting himself between Hope and Thomas. "You need to leave, Thomas," he stated calmly but firmly. "This is our day." Thomas ignored him, focusing entirely on Hope. "I made mistakes, Hope. Big ones. I hurt you and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But I have changed. I'm not the same man I was. I've spent 2 years demonstrating it, to myself and everyone else. And I know you have feelings for me even today." Hope's eyes glistened, and her breathing was unsteady. "Why are you doing this, Thomas?" Why now? Because I love you, he explained, his words honest and uncensored. I have always adored you. And I don't believe you love Carter in the same way you could love me. Not the way we were together. The gathering became hushed, the weight of his confession lingering in the air. Carter's jaw tensed, but he did not respond. He glanced at Hope, trusting her even in the midst of chaos. Hope's hands trembled when she let go of Carter's. She took a step towards Thomas, her expression torn. You can't just show up here and say these things, she continued, her voice breaking. You've departed, Thomas. You left me to collect the pieces. And Carter. Carter was there. He has always been there. I know, Thomas said, his voice quieter and almost imploring. And I'm not here to take away from what he has done for you. But I know Hope. I know your heart. And I don't believe this is what you desire deep down. Steffi arose, her voice breaking through the tension. Stop it, Thomas. You are embarrassing yourself and destroying their day. Let them be. Thomas shakes his head. I won't leave unless Hope tells me to. I need to hear it from her. Hope's gaze shifted between Thomas and Carter, her chest rising and falling with quick breaths. The weight of the moment pressed down on her. Her history with Thomas, the anguish and passion they'd shared, conflicting with the stability and love she'd found with Carter. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words emerged. Carter took her hand again, his touch mild yet forceful. Hope, he replied quietly, you don't have to do this. You do not have to respond to him. This is about us, not him. Hope's eyes lingered on Thomas, bringing memories pouring back. The late-night design sessions at Forrester Creations, the way he made her laugh, the depth of his devotion. And there were darker times, lies, betrayal, and terror. She'd fought so hard to move past that and create something fresh with Carter. Yet there was Thomas drawing her back into the maelstrom. I need a moment, Hope finally stated, her voice barely audible. She turned to walk away from the altar, her gown trailing behind her. The crowd withdrew as she approached the home, leaving Thomas and Carter in startled quiet. Thomas began to follow, but Ridge moved in front of him, his hand on his son's chest. Let her go, Thomas, he urged quietly yet firmly. You've done enough. Thomas's shoulders fell, but he nodded, his gaze remaining set on the location where Hope had vanished. Carter stood alone at the altar, his demeanor unreadable, the weight of the occasion falling on him like a shadow. Hope leaned against a wall, hands pressed to her face. Her heart raced, caught between the past and the present. Thomas's homecoming had reopened scars she believed were healed, but it had also sparked something else, something she wasn't ready to name. She adored Carter, didn't she? He was everything she told herself she wanted. Nice, consistent, and safe. But Thomas represented fire and turmoil, a pull she could not wholly resist. She heard footsteps and looked up to see Brooke walk into the room, her expression filled with concern. Hope, are you okay? Brooke inquired, grabbing for her daughter's hand. I don't know, Hope said, her voice cracking. I thought I was beyond this, past him. Seeing him again brought back all of my emotions. Brooke's expression stiffened. Thomas had no right to do this to you. He's been manipulating you again, Hope. You cannot let him drag you back into his mess. But what if it's not manipulation? Hope asked, her voice scarcely audible. What if he is telling the truth? What if he has really changed? Brooke shakes her head. People like Thomas do not change, really. You are aware of this. Carter is beneficial for you. He loves you, and he has never hurt you. Hope nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She remembered Thomas's gaze at her, the raw honesty in his eyes. He wasn't the same man who had previously crossed lines and allowed obsession to cloud his judgment. Or was he? She despised herself for her lack of confidence. Outside, Carter stood with Ridge, who put his hand on his shoulder. She'll come back, Ridge reassured. She just needs time to process this. Carter nodded, but his gaze remained distant. I've always known she had feelings for him, he explained quietly. I thought she'd moved on, but maybe I was wrong. Don't give up on her, Ridge stated. Hope loves you. Thomas is simply. He's reviving old feelings. It does not mean she will choose him. Carter did not react, his eyes locked on the mansion's entryway. He had created a life with Hope based on trust and mutual respect. But Thomas's return had shattered that foundation, and for the first time, he wondered whether he had been stupid to believe he could compete with their shared past. As the sun sank, throwing long shadows across the yard, the visitors waited, their voices becoming louder. Will Hope return to the altar? Would she choose Carter, the man who had always stayed by her, or Thomas, the man who had previously broken her but now claimed to be her genuine love? The answer hung in the air, unanswered, as the night progressed and the fate of their love story remained undetermined. Hours passed and the tension in the yard became terrible. Guests began to leave, their disappointment echoing behind them. Steffi approached Thomas with a mixture of frustration and pity. You need to go home, she stated. You've caused enough damage for one day. Thomas shakes his head. I'm not leaving until I talk to her again. You don't get to decide that, Steffi retorted. This is not about you anymore. It's about Hope and her desires. And what if she wants me? Thomas inquired, his voice low yet harsh. Steffi breathed, her shoulders relaxed. Then she will find you. But right now you're just making matters worse. Thomas hesitated and then nodded. He turned to walk away from the garden, his steps heavy. However, he did not leave the grounds. Instead, he found a peaceful spot of the estate, sitting against a stone wall and gazing up at the sky. He'd exposed his heart, and now all he could do was wait. Inside, Hope sat alone in a small study, her bridal gown falling around her like a cloud. She had sent Brooke away because she needed room to ponder. Her thoughts replayed every interaction with Thomas, the good, the horrible, and the moments that defined her. She also thought of Carter, his constant presence and unflinching support. She knew she loved him, but love was not the problem. The challenge was whether she could trust herself to select the appropriate type of love. She rose, smoothed her clothing, and walked to the window. The garden was almost deserted now, with the chairs abandoned and the flowers dying in the nighttime chill. She noticed Carter in the distance, speaking softly with Ridge, his posture tight but composed. And then she noticed Thomas standing alone under the stars, his head bent. Her heart twisted. She'd spent so long attempting to move on, to leave the past behind. But the past had a way of catching up, and Thomas was a living example. She wasn't sure what she'd say to him or Carter, but she knew she couldn't stay in this limbo forever. With a deep breath, she turned away from the window and walked for the door, prepared to confront the decision that would change everything. The night drew on and the Forrester mansion stood silent, its walls bearing the weight of a love story that would not end. Hope's decision loomed as a watershed moment that would have far-reaching consequences for everyone around her. Would she choose the man who provided her with stability, or the one who fought for her heart? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. Thomas's homecoming had shattered their world, and nothing would ever be the same.